God, I come to you from the Struggs family, Jackson family, to give us the strength in a hard time of need. We are mourning the loss of Merseana. I couldn't hear you. Merseana Struggs.
Houston, Texas, July 19, 2024. Gunshots shattered the quiet atmosphere at the park at Cumberland Apartments in North Harris County. Then more gunshots. Neighbors would later say it didn't sound like a single burst. It sounded like someone being hunted. A young woman was running through the complex. She was trying to get away. Witnesses described hearing repeated shots as she moved, followed by screams and chaos.
Roommate took her to go down there, and he wasn't there. So when they came back, he was sitting right here in her car, and she jumped out and had a confrontation with him, and he shot her a couple times. My boyfriend pushed me back in the house, and we just went in the bathroom, and I just had my hands over my head, and it was so loud. I thought he was coming in the house because he kept saying he was going to kill everybody in the house. He was going to kill us for help.
People opened doors and realized this wasn't a random disturbance. This was someone fighting to survive. The shots kept coming till death. She collapsed before she could reach safety. The gunfire stopped. The man who had been chasing her didn't stay. He left the apartment complex in her vehicle, taking off with her belongings, leaving her body behind. By the time neighbors fully understood what they had just witnessed, it was already over. A woman was dead. The killer was gone. And a residential complex had become a crime scene. Her name was Merseana Struggs. But before anyone knew who she was, before they knew she was a mother, a woman trying to build a future, someone who had tried to walk away, the only thing that mattered was this. She ran. He followed. And she didn't survive. This is where her story ends, and where intent has to begin. Tell us where you are watching from in the comment section as we investigate the incident that happened in Park at Cumberland Apartments in North Harris County, Houston, Texas. Before her life was cut short on July 19, 2024, Merseana Struggs was a 29-year-old woman living in the Houston area. She was a mother, a detail reported by neighbors and confirmed in community accounts. A woman whose life extended beyond the tragedy that took her. Friends and people who saw her around the park at Cumberland Apartments described her as kind, beautiful, and caring, a description that paints a picture far richer than the violent end that would later claim her. Before she came to Houston, Merseana had roots elsewhere. Family social profiles and memorial pages indicate she was originally from Marrero, Louisiana, and relocated to Texas seeking opportunity, not to disappear, but to expand opportunity. Houston represented scale, a chance to earn more than what was available to her before. Her move was not aimless. It was an attempt to build something for herself and her child, a future where she could provide and grow. People who knew her saw someone trying to make a better life, someone connected to both her responsibilities and her ambitions. Part of that effort included her presence online. Like many in her generation, she used digital platforms to express herself, share her life, and work toward financial independence. Merseana became direct about how she made her money. She built an OnlyFans business, openly, intentionally, and with a clear goal: financial stability. The platform wasn't a hobby, it was work, it was income. According to reporting, it generated enough money for her to support herself and her child, and it gave her something she hadn't always had: control over her own finances. She didn't hide it. Her videos showed confidence. Her dancing showed joy. Her presence showed autonomy. She presented herself as someone comfortable in her body and clear about her purpose. Online, she looked free, smiling, expressive, alive. What people saw wasn't desperation. It was an effort, a strategy, a young mother doing what she believed would keep her household afloat. This mattered, because Merseana wasn't drifting, she was building. She was choosing work that paid enough to cover real needs. She was trying to create a future where survival didn't feel fragile. Her income wasn't abstract, it was tied to responsibility and security. Neighbors who saw her around the complex didn't describe someone chaotic or troubled. They described her as someone who is active and familiar, someone raising her child, living life the way many do in modern America, working, interacting, and trying to make ends meet in a challenging economy. Her presence in the community was normal, not extraordinary, but real. The details of where she lived, how she interacted, and what she was building are part of her story long before the man who would later be accused of killing her entered it. This was who she was before him, before control, before fear, before violence. Merseana Struggs was a woman who believed she could work her way forward, and that belief shaped the life she was trying to protect. By the time Merseana Struggs settled into life in Houston, she was no longer just surviving. She was becoming visible. Her online presence was growing through social media and subscription-based platforms, OnlyFans. She was building an audience that responded to her confidence, her movement, her energy. Videos showed her dancing freely, smiling, owning space. For Merseana, this wasn't about attention for its own sake. It was about income, about providing for her child, about independence. It was during this period of momentum that Nicholas Finley entered her life. Finley became her boyfriend as her online success increased. At first, the relationship appeared ordinary, two adults forming a deep connection. But as time went on, his presence in her life grew more pronounced. According to information later shared with local media, Finley didn't remain on the sidelines of her world. He moved closer, then closer still. Eventually, he was living in her space, driving her car. What's notable is what wasn't visible. Despite Merseana's growing public profile, Finley rarely appeared in her photos or videos. Her content centered on her image, her work, her autonomy. He remained largely unseen, even as he benefited from proximity to her success. As the relationship deepened, tensions began to surface, particularly around money and control. Family members later told reporters that Finley expected to benefit financially from Merseana's online work. He demanded access, expected proceeds, and grew increasingly focused on what her success could provide him. What began as a relationship slowly shifted into something more one-sided. Finley's dependence grew. His sense of entitlement grew with it. He was demanding but not contributing. He wasn't building something alongside her, he was positioning himself inside what she had already built. And with that came pressure. Pressure over finances, pressure over resources, pressure over control. Merseana, meanwhile, was still moving forward, still working, still supporting her family, still asserting independence in ways that mattered to her. But the balance in the relationship had changed. What once looked like a partnership was becoming something else entirely, a dynamic where one person's success fed another person's demands. It was looking like an attempt to control, steal, and run away. And when that imbalance reached a breaking point, it wouldn't stay contained inside the apartment. It would spill outward, into confrontation, into fear, and eventually into violence. What had once looked like companionship started to center on money, control, and entitlement. According to information shared with Houston area media after her death, Nicholas Finley began demanding that Merseana share the proceeds from her online business with him. The work was hers, the platform was hers, the audience was hers, but the pressure to hand over what she earned became a point of conflict. Those arguments were not abstract. They weren't about future plans or shared goals. They were tied directly to ownership, who controlled what Merseana had built and who benefited from it. One of the most tangible points of control was her vehicle. At some point during the deterioration of the relationship, Finley took possession of Merseana's car and refused to return it. That refusal mattered. Transportation is freedom. Transportation is access to work, to family, to safety. Neighbors later told reporters that the dispute over the vehicle was part of the escalating conflict between them. The pressure didn't stop there. As Finley's demands increased, Merseana's independence became a source of tension rather than pride. The same confidence she displayed publicly, dancing, smiling, building an audience, existed alongside a private reality where someone close to her was trying to exert control over her resources. There was also a contradiction that stood out to those who later examined the relationship. Despite Finley's growing interest in what Merseana earned online, he remained absent from her content. He did not appear in her photos, he did not appear in her videos, he did not publicly associate himself with the work that sustained her. The benefit was private, the visibility was not. That imbalance mattered. It showed the life of a gold digger on a mission. It painted a picture of a man willing to profit from her success while distancing himself from it publicly, present enough to demand access, absent enough to avoid accountability or association. As the relationship deteriorated, the emotional pressure increased. The arguments were no longer isolated moments. They became part of a pattern. Disputes over money, disputes over property, disputes over control. And with each conflict, the space around Merseana grew smaller. Her online presence decreased. This was no longer about love. It was about entitlement, about possession, about a dynamic where one person's labor sustained another person's demands, and where refusal was met with escalation. By the time the relationship reached its breaking point, Merseana was no longer just trying to move forward, she was trying to separate, to reclaim what was hers, to step away from someone who had embedded himself into her life and resources. And when that separation finally happened, the control he had been asserting didn't disappear. It followed her. If you are here with us till now, hit the subscribe button and tell us in the comments if there was ever a relationship or a means to an end. What happened next did not unfold in a single moment. It unfolded in motion. At the park at Cumberland Apartments in North Harris County, a confrontation between Merseana Struggs and Nicholas Finley reached its breaking point. Whatever words were exchanged, whatever realizations settled in, one fact became clear almost immediately. Merseana tried to get away after a severe confrontation. She ran. Neighbors later told reporters they heard gunfire, not once, but multiple times. Then more shots, then more. The sound didn't stop quickly, it moved. And that movement mattered. It told people listening that this was not a stationary act of violence. This was a pursuit. Merseana was running through the apartment complex, trying to escape the man who was shooting at her. Witnesses described the terror of realizing what they were hearing in real time. People froze inside their homes. Some dropped to the floor. Others hid, unsure where the gunman was or where the shots were coming from next.
My boyfriend pushed me back in the house, and we just went in the bathroom, and I just had my hands over my head, and it was so loud. I thought he was coming in the house because he kept saying he was going to kill everybody in the house.
The gunfire echoed between buildings, turning a familiar residential space into something unrecognizable. In a report later aired by KPRC, a neighbor described hearing repeated shots and understanding with growing horror that the woman was being chased. The shots did not come all at once, they came in succession, each one confirming that the danger was still moving, still active, still closing in. Merseana did not make it to safety. She was caught. And when she was caught, the gunfire did not stop. She was shot again. By the time the shooting ended, Merseana Struggs was down. Neighbors would later say the silence that followed was almost worse than the noise, the moment when everyone realized someone had been killed. Nicholas Finley did not stay. He left the apartment complex in Merseana's vehicle, taking her belongings with him and leaving her behind. What residents witnessed that day was not sudden or inexplicable. It was fear unfolding step by step, a woman running, gunshots following her, and a community forced to listen as the worst possible outcome became unavoidable. By the time first responders arrived, Merseana Struggs was dead. The terror had ended, but the damage was permanent. Nicholas Finley did not wait for help to arrive. He did not call for assistance. He did not stay to face what he had done. He left. According to verified reporting from Houston area news outlets, Finley fled the apartment complex in Merseana's vehicle, the same car she had previously asked him to return. He didn't run on foot. He didn't abandon everything in panic. He drove away, using her property, taking with him items that belonged to her. Her belongings were gone, her car was gone, and she was left behind. Finley's departure was not chaotic, it was deliberate. He left with assets, not accountability. The same patterns that defined the relationship in life, entitlement, possession, exploitation, carried through in death. Even after killing her, he took from her. Even after ending her life, he benefited materially. As first responders secured the scene, it became clear that the shooter was already gone. The car he used to escape was registered to the victim. This shaped the direction of the investigation. Merseana's death was not just an act of violence, it was the final expression of control. A man who had entered her life through proximity to her resources left the scene carrying exactly what he had always sought: access, property, and advantage, without facing consequences in that moment. She was gone, and he was already miles away. Nicholas Finley did not evade arrest. After leaving the apartment complex in Merseana Struggs' vehicle, he was later located and taken into custody by authorities. His arrest came after investigators connected him to the shooting and to Merseana's stolen car. Verified court records and Houston area reporting confirm that he was arrested without incident. Finley was formally charged with capital murder, a charge that reflects the circumstances of the killing and the actions that followed. At his initial court appearance, a judge denied him bond, determining that he posed a continued danger. The arrest marked the end of his freedom, but it did not mark justice in the way Merseana's family needed. There was no reversal of what had already happened, no restoration of the life that was taken, no comfort for the child left without a mother. The legal system moved forward. Merseana Struggs did not. And that imbalance, accountability arriving only after irreversible loss, is where this story closes. The community gathered for a balloon release, sending colors into the sky in Merseana's memory. Each balloon carried a name, a thought, a moment of love meant to acknowledge that she existed beyond the violence that ended her life. The dancing clips that once represented independence, joy, and confidence were no longer content. They became memories, evidence of who she was when she felt free, when she felt alive. The community didn't just mourn Merseana Struggs, they mourned the idea that someone could try to leave, try to reclaim their life, and be punished for it with violence. Her name was spoken aloud so it wouldn't disappear. Her memory was held so it wouldn't be reduced to a headline. And in the quiet moments after the vigils ended, one truth remained. The cost of what happened would be carried not by the person who ran, but by the people who stayed behind and had to keep living.